And now I yield 5 minutes to Ms. Miller from West Virginia.
Thank you, Chairman Estes, and thank you for being here today. The IRS is facing many, many hurdles, and I don't think your job has gotten any easier in the last year or two. I wish you the best of luck in taking on this huge challenge and facing what you have to face, and I encourage you to do it transparently and as productively as you possibly can. I've been working to solve an issue for over 2 years that was caused by the incessant greed of the current administration for our tax dollars. It involves the lowering of the threshold for taxpayers to receive a 1099-K form and moving it back to its original intent. The lowering has created significant challenges for taxpayers, small businesses, and payment processors, along with the IRS, because President Biden needed to pay more for his agenda. Luckily, though, we avoided an imminent disaster because of the delay in implementation last year. It saved an estimated 40 million taxpayers from a tsunami of impossible paperwork. And I'd like to remind you that it is the role of Congress to make policy, and it's the role of the IRS to implement it, not upside down. Last year, the IRS cited the difficulty in administering the program as one reason for this delay, and the IRS did have a full year to send taxpayers a bill that they likely really didn't owe, and the agency wasn't really prepared to handle that type of a burden. If this policy was too difficult for the IRS to get right in that year with all your new employees, some of whom still are not back in the office, I believe, how do you expect an individual who is selling a bicycle or paying their rent as a group to handle the cost and the compliance burden?
You know, I think one of the most important principles of tax administration is that taxpayers have clarity on what is expected of them. And sometimes a law change in the Internal Revenue Code, sometimes we can administer it fluidly without any impact on the clarity. And sometimes the change is complex to administer. In this case, we were not ready to administer in a way that provided taxpayers the clarity they need. So we paused it. This was before I got there. I think it was the right decision, though, to pause it. Now we have work to do, and we're working very closely and engaging all the stakeholders to figure out, because the law hasn't changed yet, it's still the same law, how do we, when we resume next year, do a much better job in providing the type of clarity? What are the questions we need to answer? What are the flexibilities we need to explore? We're asking all those questions of your constituents and other stakeholders around the country, and I'm hopeful that we're going to get it right this time. But I will say again, it is complicated to administer.
Absolutely. Would the IRS welcome Congress raising that threshold back to the time-tested standard of 20,200 separate transactions?
Again, as I said earlier, I cannot opine on the wisdom or the preference of a particular policy outcome, but I will share that a change in the threshold would be easier to administer. And so at my seat at the table, I'd say the IRS would have an easier time administering it.
Thank you, because then my next question would be, do you have a plan to delay it again if indeed nothing had happened? But I'm hoping it will happen with this bill. And I also want to thank all my Republican colleagues who had signed on to the bill, and I certainly hope that my Democrat colleagues will do so as well in order to protect our constituents and make life a little bit easier while we support what we can support. Thank you so much. I yield back.